Hi there. This is a recap of the Manhwa, the Grand Duke's beloved granddaughter. If you want more videos like this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get started. The story begins in the estate of the Grand Duke Cretin. That very day, it was already nighttime, and the sky was illuminated by stars. The main heroine had just arrived at the Duke's residence and knocked, addressing him. After that, she added, "Your Grace," informing him that she was entering. Once inside, she announced to the man that the private mercenary Mirabel was at his service. The man sitting at the table began to speak, saying that her reputation preceded her. As far as he knew, the girl tolerated no failures in her missions. Then he added that although she usually didn't take such contracts, this was very important to him. That was why he was asking for her help. At the same time, he took out a photograph and showed it to the girl. The heroine immediately took it in her hands and began examining it closely. The person in the photo was quite familiar to her. The man continued, saying that the girl needed to find his daughter, whose name was Cornelia. The girl wondered if this was really serious. It was such a strange mission. She also now realized that the Duke probably truly knew nothing. Cornelia Cretin was the main heroine's mother. The girl hadn't heard that name in many years. It was after she had run away from home in pursuit of love. After that, her mother often apologized, sending letters to her family. Even during her illness, from which she later passed away. Yet, there was never any response from the family. Now the heroine wondered if, after all this, he had finally decided to find his daughter. Then she asked the man if he had even tried to search for her. The Duke, surprised, asked what she meant. The girl then asked why he had never responded to the letters she had sent, but the man again insisted that she was mistaken. Her letters had ever arrived. After a moment, the main heroine said she was very sorry, but Cornelia Cretin had long been dead. This statement shocked the man. The heroine continued her story, saying that for years the woman had sent letters begging for forgiveness. Yet in the end, she died without ever receiving a reply. The Duke began trembling from this information and asked what she was saying. Was Cornelia truly dead? Suddenly, someone entered the office where they were talking. The man asked who these people were. A man in a hat walked into the room. Approaching the main heroine and the man, he declared, "At last, we've finally met." After a moment, the Duke realized he knew this man. He asked Daniel what he was doing here. The man, lighting a cigar, said that he supposed they hadn't properly introduced themselves to each other. Then he continued his speech, saying that she was the Duke's granddaughter. He then asked his brother if he wanted to help her. The Duke immediately asked what nonsense he was spouting. What granddaughter? After receiving all this information, the main heroine asked who this man was. The man immediately said that he was her cousin uncle. He asked where they had left off had they told her about Cornelia's letters. The heroine was even more shocked. Earlier, she had wondered how this man knew about all those letters. In response, he laughed and said he had intercepted them just to make sure his brother never forgave the woman. Otherwise, if that had happened, it would have ruined his plans. The heroine immediately realized. The Duke hadn't ignored her mother's letters, she had simply never received them. Enraged, the heroine asked the man why he was only revealing this now. Then she decided that no matter his reasons, she would never forgive him. At the same time, she reached into her pocket to pull out a knife. Daniel immediately declared that he had done all this to take their lives. At that moment, his armed men appeared beside him. The Duke stood behind, while the main heroine stood in front of him with a knife. Then the Duke's brother said to the sweet Mirabel that she shouldn't resist. She just needed to accept her fate and it would be easier for her. His Grace turned to the heroine and shouted for her to run. She shouldn't fight for him. But the girl immediately addressed him. The heroine asked if he had loved her mother. The man immediately said she had meant everything to him, and he had never held any grudge against her. When the girl cried out and said that was enough for her, she took her knife and charged at her opponent. But her attack failed. There were far more enemies than her. One of the attackers swung his sword and told her to die. In the next moment, the man struck the girl. At that moment, the main heroine realized it was her end. She looked down at her body and saw the opponent's sword embedded in her stomach. The wound was deep and fatal. Before her, she only saw Daniel and understood she had failed to avenge her mother. A few moments later, the girl fell dead. Her last words were about her mother. Her body felt so heavy, as if she were drowning. The heroine had never feared death, but at that moment she feared failing to avenge her mother. In her last moment, she thought, if only I had another chance. As if in delirium, the girl heard someone calling her name. Waking up, she noticed a vaguely familiar face before her. A moment later, she realized it was her mother. Her face was exactly like hers. The main heroine immediately clung to the woman before her, hugging her tightly. Then she asked if this was really her. Her mother was surprised by such questions and asked if something had happened. She wondered if the girl had just had a nightmare. The girl kept hugging her mother, and the woman asked if she was okay. The tearful girl immediately said she was fine. Right after, the heroine thought everything felt familiar, yet something was off. She looked down at her hand. She was slightly shocked by what she saw. Had her palms always been this small? The heroine didn't understand what was happening. A cold sweat ran down her body. She wondered what was wrong with her now. A minute later, she asked her mother to give her a second. The girl's face was completely frightened, which worried her mother. The heroine quickly turned and walked away. She approached a mirror and looked at her reflection. There, she saw that she was no longer an adult woman but a little girl. She thought this couldn't be real. A moment later, she turned to her mother and asked how old she was now. The woman was horrified by the question and wondered if her child was okay. Then she said, "What are you talking about? You just turned 9 yesterday." The main heroine was horrified by this answer and wondered what was happening. A short time passed, and the girl finally calmed down a little. Her mother fed her lunch, and the girl sat at the table thinking about what had happened to her. First, it seemed she had indeed died, but for some inexplicable reason, she had returned in the body of her 9-year-old self. At the same time, her mother was still alive. Right now, the main heroine didn't understand who or what had sent her back in time, but that wasn't important. What mattered was that she had been given another chance. First, she needed to find medicine to cure her mother. There were only a few months left before she would die. The heroine remembered it was just wonderful. In her past life, she had watched her mother die helplessly, unable to do anything, but this time, things would be different. There was also something else. Now, the girl burned even more with the desire to avenge her mother, but her goal had slightly changed. She remembered the man who had spoken sincerely when asking her to find his daughter. If she thought about it, all 3 of them had been victims. They had all been deceived by that man Daniel, the Duke's brother. Sitting at the table and eating, the girl firmly decided it was time to act. She also wanted to change the future so it wouldn't be so bitter. Now, the heroine's main goal was to cure her mother and bring justice to Daniel. That meant she had to meet the Duke himself. The girl immediately asked her mother if she was busy today. The woman said no, she had planned to stay home. Then the girl asked her mother if it was true that she had a grandfather. Her mother sighed sadly and confirmed it. The little girl approached her and asked if they could meet him today. The child held the woman's hand, and her mother looked at her daughter carefully. After a moment, she said she thought it was impossible. It was because she had done something he could never forgive. A short time later, the main heroine, wearing a cloak, sneaked somewhere. She thought that if her mother couldn't go with her, she would meet him herself. She had the schedule of caravans heading to the capital. She just needed to slip in unnoticed. The heroine remembered that after her mother's death, she had lived on the streets, begging and avoiding other homeless people. Moving unnoticed wasn't too hard for her. The little girl decided this would never happen again. Soon, she saw the caravan. Without hesitation, she decided she could hide there. She climbed into one of the carriages, planning to cover herself with fabric. Suddenly, she heard someone say they needed to check the caravan before departure. A short time passed, and the girl was relieved that the inspectors hadn't noticed her. Then she felt something alive nearby. She wondered if it was a rat or what that rustling was. Suddenly, someone approached her quietly. Then the person asked who was there. The main heroine raised her head and looked at them. A moment later, she saw who it was and was shocked. She had never seen this person before and immediately asked who he was. In front of her, where she had heard footsteps, sat a boy. He had white hair and large blue eyes. The heroine wondered what this was, but it seemed he was hiding here too. With a haughty expression, the girl said that before asking someone who they were, he should introduce himself first. The boy studied her carefully, trying to figure out who she was. Realizing she was just a girl, he introduced himself as Jeffrey Coleman. The heroine immediately wondered if this was the same Jeffrey Coleman she knew from her past life. From what she remembered, this man had been the most famous mercenary on the continent. It was said he had even founded his own squad, reveling the Order of Ryan, the Royal Knights. On top of that, due to his influence, he had earned the title Mercenary King. He wasn't just strong, he also cared for others. He was also famous for his reliability. The heroine remembered fighting alongside him before. Back when she was a mercenary, this boy had constantly asked her to join his squad. Now, the girl smiled, finally seeing his face. The boy, looking at her, asked if she would now tell him her name. He was also curious why she was sitting there laughing. The heroine snapped out of it and realized she needed to answer. She said her name was Maribel Hale. She remembered that this was the name her parents had given her. It suited her perfectly. For a moment, she thought about her parents. The boy repeated her name and said it was quite beautiful. Then he kept staring at her, admiring her. The main heroine was surprised by his words but then smiled sweetly. She agreed with his statement. After a while, the boy asked why she was hiding here, but the heroine thought she should be the one asking him, the future mercenary king. She told him she needed to get to the capital, but her family didn't have a free carriage. Then she asked him the same question. He said the guards were chasing him. The heroine was surprised and asked why they would pursue such a small boy. Jeffrey was slightly offended. He asked what she meant by small boy. She was clearly younger than him. The heroine realized that Jeffrey was indeed 2 years older than her. She had forgotten she wasn't 26 anymore. She apologized and took back her words. The boy, pleased, said he forgave her. Then he smiled and admitted there was another reason. He had killed someone, a man named Gaiman from the Shen estate. He explained that his parents had borrowed money from him. When they couldn't repay it, the man beat them to death. The boy had reported the crime to the guards, but they blamed his parents, saying they shouldn't have borrowed money in the first place. Later, while walking through the city, he wondered if the man had told all the guards about him. Suddenly, the man himself approached him. He said he had spared the boy's little ass, and this was how he repaid him. Then he grabbed Jeffrey by the hair and said he should join his parents. After that, the boy decided to take matters into his own hands. The main heroine listened intently, deeply concerned. She apologized, saying it must be a painful topic for him, but the boy proudly said it didn't matter, he had already taken revenge. He then asked if she would now tell him why she was going to the capital. The heroine said she wanted to meet her mother's father but without her. The boy asked if she meant her grandfather. Then he wondered if her mother knew about this. The heroine admitted she hadn't asked for permission. Jeffrey immediately shouted, "What kind of nonsense is this? Do you realize how worried she'll be?" He insisted she should return home immediately. The heroine smiled, thinking he was absolutely right. She looked back but knew it was too late. She realized her mother would indeed be worried. But the girl remembered her past life and thought she couldn't lose her mother a second time. She couldn't just let her go. She said firmly that she knew what she was doing. Jeffrey asked if it was really that important. With a sweet smile, the girl said, "Of course it is. This is a very important mission for me." The boy was mesmerized by her cute expression. Then he snapped out of it and said it should be fine. He just hoped she would reach the capital safely. The girl said she hoped so too. She thanked him for understanding and added that he must really care about her. She reached out and patted his head, running her fingers through his hair. The boy, flustered, asked her to stop. Jeffrey blushed deeply, embarrassed by her actions. He begged Maribel to stop. Suddenly, his stomach growled loudly. The heroine asked if he was hungry. He denied it, saying it was probably just his knee creaking. The girl was glad they hadn't been caught and figured he must have been starving all this time. She checked her bag. She had some food. She had meant to save it for the journey, but after a moment, she decided the boy needed it more. She told Jeffrey to take it. He couldn't believe his eyes, staring at the food. He asked what she would eat, but the girl assured him not to worry, she had 3 more. She urged him to eat since they had a long journey ahead. The heroine watched the boy eating and thought, if the future remained unchanged, he would become a successful mercenary. But that meant he would go hungry and sleepless, so she thought it was best if he ate and rested now. As she was thinking, she heard the boy crying. She looked up and saw tears in his eyes as he stared at the food. He sat there, thanking her repeatedly. His sincerity made her pity him. Soon, Jeffrey calmed down and promised to repay her for the potato. The heroine said it was just a potato, shouldn't worry about it. But the boy insisted. His parents had borrowed money from Gaiman because he was always complaining of hunger. The future mercenary king reached out to her. He said he didn't want to owe anyone for food even if it cost him his life. The heroine placed her hand on his and listened. Jeffrey said he would have starved if not for her. Hearing this, the girl smiled and said that was good. She hoped he would repay her double in the future. Now the boy beamed and promised he would try. 3 days had passed since they boarded the caravan. That day, they finally arrived in the city, and the caravan stopped. The boy climbed out first and helped the girl, saying they had arrived and needed to go. The children quickly ran away from the caravan. After a few blocks, the heroine said they could probably stop running. The boy excitedly asked if they had really made it to the capital. He thanked her for everything and asked her to promise that after meeting her grandfather, she would return home. Her mother must be terribly worried. The heroine patted his head and said he was a good boy. She added that the same went for him. Smiling, she told him to take care. She hoped they would meet again someday. Suddenly, Jeffrey stopped Maribel and shouted that he would repay her for the potato. He placed a hand on his heart and swore it. The girl smiled sweetly and said she understood. She told him not to forget the simple potato she had shared with him. He promised he wouldn't. The sun blinded the girl that day. She thought she didn't know when or how, but she was sure they would meet again. If so, that meant she had to accomplish what she came here for. Just then, the girl approached the Duke's estate. She addressed the guard at the entrance, saying she wished to request an audience with Grand Duke Cretin. The guard was surprised. He looked at the dirty little girl and asked if she was here to see Lord Crichton. Then he said it was pointless to ask, but he wondered which noble house she was from. The heroine said she wasn't from any noble house but needed to meet him urgently. The guard apologized, saying his grace was busy with state affairs. She would need to schedule an appointment in advance. Suddenly, a man interrupted, asking if there was a problem. Hearing his voice, the girl recognized it instantly. The guard immediately said there was no issue, just a child claiming she wanted to meet him. He was about to send her away. The Duke said he understood and praised the guard's work. Then he turned to leave. The girl shouted the name Cornelia Crichton. She thought her mother urgently needed help. She had no time to explain. She said her mother's name was Cornelia Crichton and she desperately needed his help. The girl's grandfather was deeply intrigued. He asked if the child knew whose name she had just spoken. The heroine said she knew everything. She added that she knew because the woman was his grace's missing daughter. Her mother had told her everything, and if he didn't believe her, he could see for himself. As she spoke, the girl began crying. She continued, saying her mother lived in the village of Delphia. They could reach it in just 3 days by carriage. But there was no time. Her mother was very sick. The girl tried to wipe her tears, but they wouldn't stop flowing. The Duke listened carefully, not interrupting. The girl's words stunned him. He couldn't believe his ears. The heroine kept begging him with tears in her eyes. In her mind, she thought she hadn't expected to cry. But the thought of losing her mother again made the tears flow. She was ready to kneel and beg if necessary. As she was lost in thought, the Duke approached her. He placed a hand on her head, trying to comfort the child. The heroine looked up. The Duke knelt before her and said they wouldn't keep her mother waiting. He stood and ordered his subordinates to verify the girl's story and adjust his schedule. A servant immediately acknowledged and prepared a carriage. The Duke told the exhausted girl they would leave for the village as soon as preparations were complete. After his words, the grandfather and the girl entered his estate. A table was set for them to eat. The table was laden with food, but the girl had no appetite. She sat silently, lost in thought. The Duke noticed and spoke to her. He admitted he might seem insincere. He didn't even know where his daughter was, but as a father, he had something to say. The girl listened. He said all parents wanted their children to be happy. He was sure her mother prayed for the same. The heroine thought he understood her guilt enjoying this lavish meal while her sick mother suffered. But looking at him, she realized he still didn't believe her. He didn't believe her mother was truly Cornelia Crichton. It was understandable. Many had falsely claimed to know his daughter's whereabouts. Each lie had shattered his heart. Now, he couldn't fully trust anyone, yet the girl sensed his words were sincere. She knew her mother had abandoned the Duke's house to be with her father, yet the man still prayed for her happiness. Had he been praying all this time? Lost in thought, the girl began eating. The Duke was right, their mother wouldn't want her to return home hungry and sick. Soon, their meal ended, and preparations for the journey were complete. The heroine and the Duke boarded the carriage. The gentleman helped the girl inside. She thanked his grace. They sat facing each other. The heroine thought the Grand Duke was kinder than she'd imagined. The bad part was that he didn't believe Cornelia Crichton was her real mother, yet he had still embarked on this journey with her. The heroine had hated him all her life. Now, that hatred had vanished. She even pitied him. He had mourned his daughter his entire life, only to die the same day he learned of her death. Earlier, he had called her my child. It wasn't unpleasant. The carriage moved forward, and she felt utterly happy. Night fell during their journey, and the carriage stopped. They lit a fire and sat by it. The Duke told the girl he would be overjoyed if she truly was his granddaughter. But he knew she might have just heard the name and used it. Still, he didn't blame her. He had sensed her desperation and genuine desire to help her mother. The name Cornelia pained his heart, a wound that had festered for years. None of this would have happened if he had listened to his daughter back then. He said he had no one to blame but himself and his greed. The girl understood he wasn't sharing details, but she knew what he meant. His daughter, Cornelia Crichton, had been engaged to Emperor James Bassett Castro, yet she fell in love with her personal guard, Gail Howson. She wanted to annul her engagement to marry Gail, but her request was denied. In despair, she eloped with her beloved. The heroine remembered her father had died fighting a demon in the forest. That was why her mother had raised her alone. The saddest part was that if not for Daniel's scheme, her mother's letters would have reached the Grand Duke. They would have reunited, and everything might have been different. The girl saw her grandfather's sadness and tried to cheer him up, placing her hand on his. This slightly lifted his spirits. He thanked her and assured her he would help her and her family even if her mother wasn't his Cornelia. But the heroine knew he was wrong. This woman was the one he had been searching for all these years. Now, he would finally see his beloved daughter again. She wanted to say this but couldn't. After their talk, the carriage arrived at the village. The girl led the man to the house, saying this was it. The Duke looked at the crumbling house and wondered if his sick daughter had lived here alone. Moments later, they entered. The girl called out, "Mom, it's Maribel back." Her mother emerged, looking terrible. She coughed but was overjoyed to see her daughter. She immediately hugged her tightly. Overwhelmed, her mother cried, asking if her daughter knew how worried she had been. She asked if she was hurt anywhere. The girl apologized and assured her she was fine. Her mother said that was all that mattered and smiled. Peace settled between them. They were reunited at last. The Duke watched, studying the girl's mother. His hands trembled, and he dropped his cane, drawing her attention. He asked if this was truly his Cornelia. The woman also stared at him. His face was familiar. Her father fell to his knees, asking if it was really her. Cornelia couldn't believe her Aisha father, whom she had longed to apologize to, stood before her. Tearfully, she ran to him, confirming it was her. The Duke couldn't believe his happiness. He cried with his daughter, a touching moment. He embraced her, calling her his child. Cornelia apologized for her past actions, filled with regret. Later, he asked why she lived here alone. Where was her husband, Gail? The heroine's mother said he had died 4 years ago, defending the village from a demon. The man sighed deeply, clutching his head. Seeing this, his daughter apologized again, but he said that wasn't the point. She had suffered alone in such a place. He then said Maribel had told him she was very ill. Was it true? The woman lowered her gaze and admitted it was. Her father said she should have come to him immediately. He wanted to ask why she hadn't, but the heroine interrupted. She said her mother had wanted his forgiveness. She had sent many letters but never received a reply. She thought he was still angry, that was why she couldn't return. The Duke was stunned, had never known. The heroine thought it was obvious Daniel had ensured he never saw those letters. Her grandfather said they had much to discuss, but first, they should return to the estate, where they could talk safely. The girl was relieved. He urged them to hurry, his daughter needed treatment. She thanked him and said she would pack, asking him to wait. He assured her servants would help, she shouldn't strain herself. Later, her mother asked Mirabel to come closer. The girl wondered what she wanted. Her mother asked if she had brought her grandfather here because she was worried about her. She called her a brave girl and thanked her. She also apologized for burdening such a small child. But she added that next time, she shouldn't do anything so dangerous. A mother should care for her child, not the other way around. She said nothing was more important than her daughter's safety. The heroine smiled and said she understood. Preparations for departure continued, and belongings were loaded into the carriage. The Duke stood outside, watching his daughter and granddaughter approach. His daughter carried a box, and he suggested giving it to a servant. But Cornelia said these were Gail's things, she wanted to carry them herself. They weren't heavy. The Duke respected her wish and embraced her. He said the carriage awaited them at the village entrance. The heroine tried to slip away, wanting to leave them alone, but her mother noticed. She said her hands were full and asked Mirabel to hold her grandfather's hand. The girl was confused but realized her mother wanted them to bond. She approached her grandfather and asked, "Your Grace, may I have your hand?" He offered it, and they walked together. Her mother trailed behind, wondering why her daughter still called him "Your Grace." Soon, they reached the carriage. The Duke said he should have said this earlier, but he thanked Mirabel. Without her, he would never have found his daughter. The heroine said she didn't deserve thanks. If he hadn't trusted her, none of this would have happened. She realized the Grand Duke hadn't believed her at first. His kindness to a helpless peasant child had united them all. He had kept kindness in his heart despite losing his daughter. She was sure he deserved more. Over the next 3 days, her mother and the Duke shared their stories. Her mother spoke of her love for her husband and why she had run away. She also expressed her regrets. The Duke admitted his decisions had been driven by selfishness and greed. Though they had lost years, their reunion was pleasant. Finally, the Duke's carriage arrived at his estate. Everyone was ready to welcome his daughter and granddaughter. The heroine stepped out, thinking they would live here now. She had to cure her mother and change the future. The Grand Duke would handle her illness, she would handle the rest. She briefly felt like an outsider. Suddenly, a man approached the Duke. Anxiously, he asked if the letter was true, that his Grace really found his daughter, Cornelia. Then he saw the woman and confirmed it was her. He rushed over, asking where she had been all these years. Did she know how worried he had been? The heroine's mother smiled and apologized. The man was just glad she had returned. Then he noticed the child beside her. Cornelia said she and Gail had a daughter. She asked her daughter to greet him, introducing him as Uncle Brian, Duke of House Cretan. The heroine curtsied, saying, "In Mirabel, it's a pleasure to meet you, my lord." The man patted her head, saying it was amazing she looked just like them. He was delighted to meet her and said she could call him uncle. He mentioned he had a son around her age. Just then, the boy approached. Brian asked his son, Elliot, to come greet her. The boy smiled and said he was happy to meet his aunt. "I'm Elliot Crichton." He introduced himself. His father presented Mirabel as his cousin, reminding him to be polite. The boy smiled again and said, "Nice to meet you." The heroine extended her hand. "I'm Mirabel, likewise." Both children smiled sweetly at each other. The Duke suggested they go inside. Cornelia and Mirabel must be tired. He apologized to the girl, asking if she could stay in Cornelia's room tonight. Her own room wasn't ready yet. She agreed. Her mother said she was tired. The girl assured her they could rest now. Her mother agreed, and they went inside. There, her mother sang her a lullaby. The heroine thought she might have been wrong about House Crichton. They were much kinder than she expected. Some time passed, and the Duke summoned a healer for her mother. The man examined her and said she would need 3 months of treatment. The heroine realized the Grand Duke had called the high priest of Duna's temple to heal her mother. Goddess Duna was the mother of all gods. Her priests possessed healing abilities. Yet even with the high priest, treatment would take 3 months. The girl worried if her mother would fully recover. The Duke asked if 3 months would be enough. The priest assured him Lady Cornelia would be fully healed by then. But then the priest asked to examine Miss Mirabel. Her mother grew concerned and asked why. The priest explained that her illness, Hazel, was genetic. They couldn't be sure, but statistically, it could pass to descendants. The Duke requested he examine the girl as well. The priest agreed. The heroine thought she never had such an illness in her past life. The high priest asked to take her hand. She extended it, and he checked for any affliction. Instead, he found something interesting. Miss Mirabel showed no signs of illness. Instead, she could wield divine power. Everyone in the room was stunned. The priest asked if she had ever considered visiting the temple. The heroine wondered if this ability had appeared when she traveled back in time. She'd never had it before. She asked if this meant she could heal people like him, maybe even cure her mother. The priest said her mother's illness was rare and difficult to treat. but one day, she might heal her with her own hands. The girl's heart swelled with hope. If only she'd had this ability sooner, her mother wouldn't have died helplessly. Now, she vowed not to let her die this time. She told the priest she would visit the temple. He smiled, saying he would await her. Later, the family gathered for a meal. The Duke thanked the gods her illness was curable. Uncle Brian agreed, relieved. The heroine's mother said this was all thanks to her little Belle. Without her, she would have died soon. The heroine noticed the boy across the table staring at her. It was Uncle Brian's son, Elliot. Her uncle asked how she had slept. She said it was comfortable and thanked him. He smiled, saying that was great. If anything bothered her, she should tell him. The girl forced a smile, saying she would, but his presence made her uneasy for good reason. In her past life, this man was known as the Iron Duke. He was cold and indifferent, but worse, she had seen his bloodlust during a demon extermination mission. His brutality as he slaughtered demons had haunted her. He had asked, "Is this all?" and demanded they move to the next target. She remembered that horror vividly. Now, sitting before him, she was tense. Brian said she resembled Cornelia as a child, so pretty and clever to have travelled alone to the Cretan estate. The heroine found his praise oddly grandmotherly. He insisted he wasn't just saying this because she was his niece. He proudly boasted about her to the world. Suddenly, his eye darkened as he looked at her. With a pained expression, he asked if it was hard for her to talk to him. She asked what he meant. He admitted children in their domain often ran from him in fear. He tried to be friendly, but it never worked. He truly wanted to be kind. The heroine remembered him from her past life but smiled, saying he had nothing to apologize for. She added it wasn't his face, he just needed to work on his expressions. She could imagine neighborhood kids screaming in terror. Brian asked if it was really that bad. Her mother laughed, saying she'd always told him his face was terrifyingly blank. The Duke scolded Brian for discussing this in front of the children. His sweet Mirabel had suffered enough, but the heroine thought her uncle wasn't at fault. His son, Elliot, chimed in, saying his father's face had scared Mirabel, ruining her appetite. The girl admitted it was true. But she smiled and told her uncle she was fine, just adjusting. She'd get used to everything in time. Grateful, he said if anyone threatened her, she should come to him. He'd make sure their fate was worse than death. Elliot scolded his father again. You couldn't comfort someone with such a scary face. Brian then told Elliot he expected him at training today. The boy was surprised as he thought it was cancelled. His father said he was mistaken. The heroine laughed. She wasn't used to this environment yet, but they all seemed kind and caring. Later, the Duke called her my dear. She asked what his grace wanted. She still couldn't get used to him calling her dear or darling. In her past life, she had considered him her sworn enemy. He asked if there was anything she wanted. She wondered what she desired. He said he'd never had the chance to spoil his dear granddaughter. He didn't know where to start. What did she dream of? Her mother's illness would soon be cured. It was too early to deal with Daniel. Nothing came to mind. Then she remembered the boy she'd met on the way to the capital. It would be wonderful if she could help Geoffrey. In her past life, he had become the mercenary king on his own, but she didn't want him to suffer through that again. If she helped him now, maybe he would repay her in the future. Lost in thought, her grandfather called her name. She apologized for not answering. She mentioned a boy she'd met on her journey. They hadn't talked much, but she said it seemed he was being pursued. Could her grandfather help him? The Duke agreed. Did she know his name or any details? She said his name was Geoffrey Coleman, from Schoen. He was 2 years older than her, with silver hair and blue eyes. The Duke noted he was only 11. It must be a misunderstanding or misfortune. He would handle it if all went well. The boy wouldn't be hunted anymore. The girl thanked him, relieved. This would help Geoffrey. Then the Duke told Cornelia they had received a letter from the Emperor last night. He didn't know how he'd learned of her return, but he requested her visit. Her mother asked if he meant Emperor James Bassett Castro. Of course, she had humiliated him by running away. She hadn't expected this. She told her father she would visit the Emperor tomorrow. He said he would inform him. She apologized again for the pain she'd caused her father and brother. Her father said it wasn't necessary. They were just glad she was home safe. Her brother offered to accompany her to the palace. She thanked them but said this was something she needed to do alone. The heroine was happy to see her mother smile again. She ate a sweet, thinking it tasted nothing like the treats from her past life. Her mother asked if she liked the egg tart. The girl said she did. The Duke immediately ordered more tarts for his granddaughter. A servant said they would bring them at once. Moments later, a mountain of tarts appeared before her. The girl said he shouldn't have, but her grandfather glowed with joy. He urged her to enjoy them. He promised to give her anything she wanted. The heroine savored the delicious treats. After the meal, she and her mother returned to their room. Servants had prepared a dress for my lady. In the room, the girl thought dreams were becoming reality. Her mother was alive. If she had gone back further, maybe she could have saved her father too. Her mother asked if she would accompany her to meet the Emperor today. The girl agreed. Her mother admitted she was a little scared, but with her daughter by her side, she felt calmer. The heroine already knew the answer to her question. She had been too young when her father died to do anything. Now, she hugged her mother tightly, promising to always stay by her side. Her mother thanked her and apologized for not being able to do more. From now on, she would take care of her. The heroine vowed to protect her mother no matter what. Soon, they set off for the imperial palace by carriage. When they arrived, they were greeted at the palace gates. Cornelia recognized the man and said she was happy to see Tenevin. Before him stood two elegantly dressed women, mother and daughter. The man kissed the woman's hand, saying he had heard of her return. How was she? Cornelia said she was well and thanked him for his concern. It seemed he had been promoted in her absence. He confirmed that he now commanded the royal guard. He asked permission to escort her to the emperor. His Majesty was expecting her. The emperor watched their carriage from his window. Soon, they were led to the emperor's chambers. A servant announced, "Cornelia Cretin has arrived to see you." The emperor ordered her admitted. The heroine wondered if her mother was okay. When they entered, the emperor stood with his back to them, gazing out the window. After a moment, the heroine and her mother curtsied in greeting. He turned to welcome them. The emperor said Cornelia was late. He had waited for her then in Venice's garden, and he waited for her now. He approached, asking why she had never visited him even once. The heroine realized this was the emperor who had loved her mother. Her mother said if she had met him in the garden that day, she would never have seen Gale again. She didn't regret her choice. But she deeply regretted the pain and years of waiting she had caused. The emperor listened intently. Then his gaze shifted to the girl beside her. The heroine thought he must have truly loved her mother. He asked if this was her and Sir Haston's daughter. The girl curtsied. Mirabel greets His Majesty the Emperor. He said this conversation wasn't for children who wished to speak with Cornelia alone. Her mother agreed. She asked Mirabel to wait outside. The girl said she would. As she left, the heroine thought the emperor cherished her mother. He wouldn't harm her. Suddenly, she bumped into someone. A boy had fallen. He complained she had appeared out of nowhere. The girl studied him. His hair color reminded her of someone. Servants rushed over, asking if His Highness was all right. This boy was Prince Adrian Castro. He demanded to know who she was. She should be glad he wasn't hurt, though his clothes were now dirty. The heroine thought he was cute but spoiled. She curtsied. Mirabel greets His Highness. She noted how much he resembled the emperor. A servant explained she was the Grand Duke Cretin's granddaughter. The prince asked if the Cretin house had another child besides Elliot. The girl apologized for bumping into him and asked permission to leave. But the prince stopped her, asking who was with the emperor now. She asked if something was wrong. He said the person who had made the empress cry was in that room. He would teach them a lesson. The heroine understood the emperor was with his former love. To the prince, this was unforgivable. It seemed the emperor hadn't fully moved on. For the empress, this was a nightmare. This boy had rushed here after seeing his mother's tears. The heroine knew his feelings well. He was a devoted son but too brash. She told him her mother was inside speaking with the emperor. She asked him to calm down. Her mother hadn't meant to upset the empress. Their conversation was interrupted by a woman calling Adrian. The children turned. The heroine realized it was the empress. The woman said she had hoped not to find him outside the emperor's chambers. She approached Adrian, saying he would only complicate things for the emperor. The boy insisted he couldn't forgive anyone who made her cry. His mother patted his head, saying she appreciated his feelings, but it wasn't necessary. She was upset about something else. Then she noticed the girl beside her son. She asked who she was. The heroine curtsied. Mirabel, daughter of Cornelia Cretin and Gale Haston. The empress understood. She asked if she was waiting for her mother and invited her to wait over tea. The girl accepted, thanking Her Majesty. The three went to the garden for tea. The empress noted the girl's appetite. Cornelia had also loved sweets. She urged her to enjoy them. The heroine smiled, thanking her. The prince kept staring at her. He was similar to Elliot but different. The empress said she didn't know if Cornelia had mentioned it, but they had been close friends. She wasn't sure if Cornelia still considered her one. The heroine was sure she did. If they met, her mother would remember. As she pondered, her mother called her name. The empress looked up and saw Cornelia. Cornelia curtsied, greeting Her Majesty. She said it had been so long. How was she? The empress burst into tears. Because of Cornelia, the past 8 years had been hell. The emperor had waited for her all this time. He was all she had. She sobbed, saying Cornelia had vanished without a word, leaving her wondering if she was even alive. Did she know how much she had hurt her? Adrian listened, distressed. He moved to comfort his mother. The heroine stopped him, whispering they should leave them alone. Their sadness and anger showed how much they had missed each other. The empress said now that she knew Cornelia was alive and well, she couldn't help but feel happy. She hugged her friend tightly. She said she was so glad Cornelia had returned. The children watched, relieved. They returned to the table, now joined by Cornelia. The empress remarked how rough her hands were. Cornelia said after Gale's death, she had done all the manual labor herself. The Empress asked about the Grand Duke and he helped. Cornelia said she had sent letters, but none had reached him. After abandoning him, she couldn't just return. She thought he still resented her. The Empress asked why she hadn't written to her they had been friends. Cornelia said that would have been presumptuous. The Empress said she should have thought of her friend. The heroine understood why they had been so close. Empress Marian had secretly loved the Emperor. When Cornelia eloped, she had taken her place in the engagement. But the Emperor had waited for Cornelia for 2 years before marrying Marian. Her love for the Emperor and her care for her friend, mixed with resentment, had caused her great sorrow. This had continued until Prince Adrian was born. At least he was a good son, defending his mother. The heroine was distracted by the prince staring at her again. She asked if something was wrong. He asked if she didn't like the cookies. She said they were fine but too sweet. He was shocked who didn't like sweets. She clarified she didn't dislike them, it just didn't matter now. He was such a child. After tea, they prepared to leave. The Empress and Prince saw them off. Marian invited Cornelia to visit anytime she would prepare her favorite tea. Cornelia promised to come, joking not to complain if she visited too often. The Empress laughed, waving goodbye. She hoped to see Maribel again soon. The heroine thanked Her Majesty, saying it had been a pleasure. She glanced at Adrian, who hesitated before raising a hand to wave. Her mother called her to the carriage. The girl followed, and they departed. In the carriage, the heroine reflected. Her mother's health was improving. The meeting with the Emperor had gone better than expected. Now, she needed evidence against Daniel. Lost in thought, her mother asked what was on her mind. The girl said she had a question. Was there anyone else in the Grand Duke's family she hadn't met yet? Her mother smiled. There was one more. Her cousin uncle, Daniel Cretan, the Duke's younger brother. The girl noted her mother didn't suspect him of intercepting the letters. How could she prove it? Her mother asked a favor. The girl asked what it was. Could she call the Grand Duke grandfather? After all, he was her grandfather. Though he didn't show it, he surely wanted her to. The heroine agreed it was awkward, but her mother was right. She would try. Her mother thanked her, hoping she would adjust soon. Back at the estate, the Grand Duke asked about the Emperor. Cornelia said the meeting had gone well. He asked how His Majesty was and what they had discussed. She said they had spoken of the past and their feelings. The Emperor had been understanding and needn't worry. Relieved, the Duke said he could finally relax. Cornelia mentioned Uncle Daniel would return soon. Until then, they could rest. The Duke urged her to go upstairs and rest. The heroine addressed him as grandfather, saying she had something to tell him. She asked her mother to go ahead. Delighted, the Duke said he would send Maribel up soon. He was curious what she had to say. Her mother said she would wait. They went to his study. He offered her tea. The heroine realized this was the same room where she had died. She asked if he remembered her mentioning her mother's letters. He did. They contained Cornelia's apologies. She said her mother had sent at least 2 letters a week, some through merchant guilds, others via mercenaries. That meant at least 20 a year. It was suspicious none had reached him. She doubted he would believe her if she accused Daniel outright. She needed to plant suspicion. She said she feared the letters had been lost because someone disliked her and her mother. She thought of Daniel Cretan because of him. Her mother had died from a curable illness. She had buried her with her own hands. The memory of her beloved mother lying cold in the dirt haunted her. She would never let it happen again. The Duke agreed it was strange so many letters had gone missing, but he assured her no one in the estate wished them harm. The heroine knew telling him about the future was pointless. She asked him to look into it as her grandfather. She curtsied, thanking him. He promised he would and urged her to rest. She left, thinking there was no need to rush. Only a day had passed since their arrival. Even Brian didn't suspect Daniel.